May 1973, the Isle of Wight, England. Two children followed a strange sound across a golf course. It sounded like an ambulance siren, but not quite. It was too mechanical, too rhythmic. The sound led them to a footbridge. And there, emerging from underneath it, they saw a hand wearing a strange blue glove. The figure that surfaced from the water was nearly 7 feet tall. He wore an oddly colored clown costume, and he proceeded to tell the children that he wasn't human. Sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, right? But here's the thing, this might have actually happened. We've all heard scary clown true crime stories, but this one is a little different. This is the story of the Sandown Clown, a true account from two young children that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The Isle of Wight lies just off the southern coast of England. In May 1973, it was a popular holiday destination for British families. Quiet beaches, rolling countryside, golf courses. It was the kind of place where children could play outdoors unsupervised. Lake Common near the town of Sandown was a large open area of grassland and marsh. It sat between the Sandown and Shanklin Golf Club and what was then a largely disused airport. Children often wandered there, exploring and playing. On a Tuesday afternoon in May, two 7-year-old children were exploring in the area. For privacy reasons, their names were not made public. The girl was given the pseudonym Faye in the official report. The boy remained unnamed. They were vacationing on the island with Faye's family. Around 4 o'clock, the two children were playing near Lake Common when they heard the sound. A strange siren. It sounded like it was calling to them. Curious, the children followed the sound. It led them across the golf course, through the grass, toward a swampy meadow, and then suddenly it stopped. They crossed a small footbridge that spanned a brook. The water was clear, nothing unusual, and suddenly they saw a gloved hand rising out of the water. The figure arose from the water slowly and placed itself on the footbridge. It was a clown. The children would later describe it as massive, towering over them at what they estimated was 7 feet tall at least. But it wasn't just the size that unsettled them. His skin looked artificial, like papier-mâché mixed with human skin, and the way it moved. Each part of its body seemed to operate independently, like a small army of ants. The figure waved at the children as if to greet them. As it did so, they noticed it had only 3 fingers on each hand. The children felt the urge to run, but a strange feeling compelled them not to. After waving, the clown began to walk away. It moved strangely, high-stepping, bouncing slightly, as if it weren't used to our gravity, as if it were used to moving somewhere else. It walked toward a small structure in the trees, a hut or a shed, something metallic, glinting in the afternoon sun, and then it disappeared inside. The children stood by the bridge, uncertain. Should they leave? Should they investigate? Before they could decide, the figure emerged again. This time it was carrying something, a device, rectangular, with a handle and what looked like a small speaker attached. The figure approached the children slowly, cautiously. It held up a device, and a voice came through the speaker, high-pitched, robotic, mumbled, as if the mouth wasn't opening properly, which of course it wasn't, because the mouth didn't move at all. The figure seemed shy, nervous. It kept its distance at first, watching the children with its painted, unsettling eyes, and then it did something unexpected. It pulled out a notebook and a pencil, and it began to write. The words were written in large, awkward letters, not in a conventional sequence. The children had to read them as the figure pointed to each word in turn. The figure's message read, "Hello, and I am all colors, Sam. Sam." The figure called itself Sam. Or did it? Later, when the children asked if Sam was its name, the figure replied that it had no name. Perhaps Sam meant something else. Perhaps the children misunderstood, but in the moment standing by the footbridge, the children accepted it. The clown's name was Sam. All colors, Sam. Sam continued to speak through the device. The voice was clear now, though still mumbled and strange. It asked the children about themselves, who they were, what they were doing there. The children, emboldened by Sam's friendly demeanor, began to ask questions in turn. They asked about the strange clown suit. Sam said it was the only set of clothes it had. They asked if Sam was a man. In response, it smiled a strange smile and replied, no. They asked if Sam was a ghost. The answer was strange, cryptic. It replied, well, not really, but I am, in an odd sort of way. The children pressed further. They repeatedly asked Sam what he was. Sam's response was always the same. You know what I am. But the children didn't know. They had no idea what the strange figure was. That was when Sam invited the children into its hut. The hut was small, metallic. Sam told the children it made the structure itself. The children entered through a flap on the side. Inside, the hut had 2 levels. The lower level had plenty of headroom. The walls were covered in a strange wallpaper pattern, blue-green, covered with drawings of dials, circular patterns, symbols the children didn't recognize. There was an electric heater in the corner, simple wooden furniture, a table, chairs. The upper level was smaller, less spacious. The floor there was metallic, cold. The children stayed on the first level. Sam removed its hat. Underneath, the children could see round white ears, sparse brown hair on top of a balding scalp. Sam began to speak more freely. It told the children about its life, its habits. It said it ate berries. It collected them in the late afternoon, though it didn't say where. It said it drank water from the river, but only after cleaning it somehow, purifying it. It mentioned a camp on the mainland, somewhere it could go, but it didn't elaborate. And then Sam demonstrated how it ate. This is the part of the story that seemed to unsettle the children the most. The figure pulled a raspberry out of its pocket. It held the berry in its 3-fingered hand for a moment before shoving it directly into its ear canal. The berry then made its way through the figure's head and pushed itself out of its eye socket. Sam then covered its eye and jerked its head forward. It lifted its head to reveal the berry was now in its mouth. The berry then fell into its throat. There was no chewing. The children were horrified. Sam didn't present its display as a magic trick. It was all very matter-of-fact, as if Sam was genuinely showing the children how it ate. The children wondered in that moment if Sam was some kind of robot. They were both very confused. The only thing they were sure of was that Sam was not human. They continued to ask questions. Sam continued to answer, as best he could. It showed them more objects, devices, things the children couldn't identify. The conversation lasted about 30 minutes, and then, politely, Sam indicated it was time for the children to leave. They said goodbye. Sam waved. The children exited the hut and ran. They ran across the golf course, back toward civilization, their minds reeling with what they just experienced. On their way back, they passed 2 workers who were repairing a post near the area. Children asked the workers if they'd seen anything that looked like Sam. The workers looked at them blankly. They'd seen nothing. No 7-foot figure, no metallic hut, nothing unusual at all. The workers scolded the children for making up stories and sent them on their way. The children didn't tell anyone what they saw. They were afraid they wouldn't be believed. The workers' reaction showed them as much. They waited. Days passed, then weeks. Finally, Faye told her father. Her father was known in the report only as Mr. Y. He listened to their story very carefully, and unlike most parents, he didn't dismiss it. Because, unbelievably, Mr. Y had had a similar experience. On October 1970, while driving on the Isle of Wight between Shanklin and Ryde, he'd seen strange lights in the sky. Cherry red balls of light that paced his car, moving impossibly fast, changing direction, following him. The lights sped into the forest, and as he drove past, he swore he saw a shadowy figure emerge from the forest, a shadowy figure that looked like a clown. He'd seen things on the island, things he couldn't explain. So when his daughter told him about the figure with 3 fingers and a painted face, He believed her. Mr. Y took his family back to Lake Common. They searched for the hut, for any sign of Sam. They found nothing. The metallic structure was gone, vanished, as if it never existed. Mr. Y, concerned about ridicule, kept the story quiet for years, but eventually he contacted a local UFO researcher, a man by the name of Leonard G. Cramp. Cramp passed the story along to the British UFO Research Association, known as Bufora. In January 1978, 5 years after the encounter, the case was published in the Bufora Journal under the title Ghost or Spaceman 73. The article was written by Norman Oliver, the journal's editor. He interviewed both children separately. Even after 5 years, their stories matched. Every detail, every description of the clown. The strange eyes, the berry trick, the gloved hand with only 3 fingers. Both children drew pictures of Sam. The drawings were remarkably consistent. There was no evidence of fabrication, no indication that the children were seeking attention. They seemed genuinely disturbed by what they'd experienced. And yet there was no physical evidence. No hut, no footprints, no other witnesses. Just the testimony of 2 7-year-olds and the nagging question: was their story genuine, or was it some kind of shared delusion? So what was Sam? Over the years, researchers have proposed several theories. The simplest explanation is that the children made it up, or misidentified something ordinary and let their imaginations fill in the rest. Perhaps they encountered a homeless person or local eccentric in strange clothing. But this theory has significant problems. The children's accounts were remarkably consistent, even when interviewed separately years apart. They were given polygraph tests. They both passed. They showed no signs of deception. They weren't seeking attention or profit. The story remained largely unknown for decades, and the level of detail they provided, the specific oddities they described, seem beyond the imagination of 7-year-olds. Given that the case appeared in a UFO journal, many researchers have interpreted this to be an alien encounter. Sam's appearance, odd as it was, shares characteristics with other reported close encounters from the 1970s. The large head, the unusual skin, the difficulty communicating, the strange technology. The berry-eating demonstration could have been a scanning process with Sam's face acting as a protective mask that analyzed the food for toxins before consumption. The high-stepping gait could indicate adjustment to Earth's gravity, and Mr. Y's previous sightings of lights in the sky and clown-shaped figures in the forest could suggest a pattern of UFO activity in the area. But why would an extraterrestrial dress like a clown? Why the theatrical costume, the pointed hat, the tattered tunic? Unless Sam wasn't trying to blend in. Unless the costume was a deliberate choice. A way of appearing less threatening to the children. Or perhaps a way of ensuring the encounter would be remembered, discussed, investigated. Some researchers have suggested Sam was not extraterrestrial but interdimensional, a being from another reality that briefly manifested in ours. It would explain the strange, dreamlike quality of the encounter, the workers' inability to see Sam, the disappearance of the hut. Perhaps the children briefly accessed a parallel reality, a place where Sam existed, visible only to those who could perceive it. The cryptic answers could be Sam's attempt to explain a nature that doesn't fit into our categories of existence. This theory aligns with folklore, fairies, and other entities that occupy liminal spaces, appearing to some and not others. But it's pure speculation. There's no framework for testing such a hypothesis. Could this have been a shared hallucination? A folie à deux, where 2 people experience the same delusion? Environmental factors could have played a role. Electromagnetic fields from the nearby airport, infrasound from machinery, even fungi or plants that can produce hallucinogenic compounds. But folie à deux in children this young is extraordinarily rare, and it doesn't explain the consistency of their separate accounts, maintained over decades. It also doesn't explain why both children would hallucinate the same incredibly specific details: the 3-fingered gloves, the berry trick, the message in the notebook. The Sandown Clown remains one of the strangest documented encounters in British paranormal history. No other witnesses have ever come forward. No one else has reported seeing Sam before or since. The case rests entirely on the testimony of 2 children who, by all accounts, were telling the truth as they understood it. Lake Common is still there. The golf course still operates. The old airport has been revitalized. Life goes on. But sometimes, on quiet afternoons in May, you might find yourself walking across those fields, and you might hear something. A sound like an ambulance siren, but not quite.